Go into any antique store and you'll be assaulted by ghosts of the past. An old teacup, an old school coffee grinder, even old clothes. These things all contain the spirits of the people who used them over and over. Maybe they weren't thinking about this while they were using them, but their spirits are preserved in these objects long after they've passed on. I feel like the constant maintenance and use of these items imbues them with profound magic and inherent meaning. And this is an idea that's actually explored a lot in video games. Cal Kestis in Star Wars has the ability to touch an object and experience force echoes from the person who used that object. In Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, the shinobi prosthetic is described as being stained thick with blood and oil, while also being described as impeccably maintained. It carries the weight of its previous owner's history, and still functions flawlessly because of the impeccable care it received. In the game Control, Jesse Faden seeks out objects of power that behave according to what they are and are imbued with paranatural abilities. You can even read about the Federal Bureau of Control's first encounter with these objects. Oftentimes, it's implied that the object is actually possessed by some kind of spirit, or even sometimes a person. And objects carrying a spiritual power is an idea that's existed for a very long time. For instance, in Japanese folklore, the
Tsukumogami, which means
Tsukumogami in Japanese.
they're said to either behave benevolently or maliciously, depending on how they were maintained and treated during their lifetime. In Norse mythology, there's a legendary weapon known as Skålvnung, which was a sword that was imbued with the spirits of a king's 12 bodyguards. It'd be King Hrolf Kraki, and anybody who held this sword could feel the weight and the rage of all of his bodyguards at once, and it was said to give you supernatural strength if you were to use it. And then if we take a look at Greek mythology, we have Hephaestus the smith god, the god of the forge. He could make living objects out of gold, and so he had what are described as these golden tripods that were basically serving platters that would go and serve the gods in their banquet halls and stuff. And he also created like people basically made of gold that were said to be alive, which is pretty cool. And these stories all serve to explore the boundaries of the living and the deceased, and also the animate and the inanimate. Maybe they served as a lesson to take precious care of your belongings, like in the case of the
Tsukumogami in Japanese.
And these myths still live with us today in our heads, whether we know it or not. Because ideas like this were foundational to our psychological history. It's really no wonder why we're obsessed with stories about a hero with a talking sword or some other mythical object. And my guitar, my computer, my books, my phone, all of these things are like that. You know, sometimes I feel like my Steam library has a spirit of its own.
Games for a literal 3 game more than me, and it cost you $20.
Anyway, we can apply the logic of these myths and video game stories to our own lives, finding a genuine psychological healing effect in the process. All you need to understand is this one final connection that I'll be making later in this video, so stick around for that. But anyway, and speaking of my Steam library, there is one game on this list that I think perfectly represents this idea of maintaining an old inherited object. It may or may not come with a real life spirit. This is Pacific Drive. Pacific Drive is the kind of game that you know you're going to have a good time just from looking at the store page. It's almost like a car mechanic sim with some strange fantasy sci-fi elements built in. Think The Long Drive with roguelike elements and some more polish. It's set in a sort of stalker-like universe where a big exclusion zone is set up by the government following some dimension-destroying disaster. And instead of roaming around shooting people and taking their stuff, you're driving a car on a road trip with three zany characters in the back seat, all arguing over what you're supposed to be doing. Anyway, you find this car. It's like an old beat up station wagon or some kind of other jalopy. And, it's a hunk of junk. Basically, it's a piece of crap when you find it. It actually sort of signals to the player that it's alive and needs rescuing. It like blinks the headlight at you after you become stranded in a zone of instability, which is really conceptually pretty cool because it's like at this moment, you, the player, need rescuing too. So it's like you find each other and you're all just like, hey, team up. Anyway, you get this car. The funny voices on the radio start saying it's some kind of remnant or something like that, whatever that means. It's basically an object of power a la control, but it's inexorably linked to the person who uses it. And then they tell you that the fate of every person who receives a remnant ends up going crazy and just running into the void and never coming back. So you have that to look forward to in this game. It's a cool premise, right? I think so. Anyway, you link the car back to the garage where you know it's safe, and yada, yada, yada. And you gotta spend some time reading and learning about the various systems and mechanics of the game. It walks you through the most basic parts of it, and it's really not so bad. You just gotta put all the car parts on the car where they go. So you got 5 panels, 5 doors, and 2 bumpers, and 2 headlights. It also features 4 wheels, so just much like the cars in real life. But then you find out there's a plethora of things that can go wrong with your car, from having flat and loose tires to having a dead battery, or even just having weird quirks that happen and that you accumulate as a result of playing. The quirk system is one of the game's coolest features. Just like real maintained objects, it can develop quirks that almost sort of personalize it and endear it to you. If you ever discover that your back hatch is randomly opening for no reason, you gotta play around with it. You gotta really get into its guts and figure out, well, what's causing this to happen. And you do that by using the Tinker Station to guess the quirk. And if you guess correctly, you get rid of it. And I always feel kind of bad doing that because it kind of feels like I'm suppressing the spirit of the car, if that makes sense. It's like, I don't know. It's just like in real life, I kind of like my objects to have some quirky little behaviors because well, then I have to work around them, but it makes them mine. Like I like having to not have to constantly flick off the windshield wipers for whatever reason, but it does make the object feel a little less mine and a little more factory standard, if that makes sense. But if you leave it unchecked, eventually your car does become a serious pain to work with, and so you might want to just take care of that. So basically, there are 2 phases in the game, and the first phase is preparation, and the second phase is like the run stage, the run phase. So before you set out on a quest, you got to use the resources that you've got on hand to fix up your car. And you've been hopefully gathering resources from a bunch of different places of interest and a bunch of different areas while in the run stage to get your rubber, your plastic, your metal, all the different resources that you'll need in order to play the game properly. They got a bunch of different repair items. They got different repair items for every part of your car. So let's say, for example, you get a flat tire. Well, you got to make a sealing kit. Otherwise, the tire's it's gonna make a sound. You're gonna hear it. It sounds like a flat tire, and your steering is gonna pull to the side of the flat. So you got to fix that with the sealing kit. And you can craft the sealing kit in the back of your car or in the garage. Either one. You can bring one in with you, or you can be like, oh shit, I forgot to make it. So what do I have lying around here? And you can kind of cobble together something in order to fix your car on the go. And once your car's all fixed up, it's time to go out on missions and listen to the funny voices on the radio. Actually, the radio is a really cool part of this game. Anything that's played on it it sounds like it's in the game. It carries with it the reverb and stuff of the environment that it's playing in. So they have a radio in the garage that you can play, and it kind of gets the echo of the garage. And then there's a radio inside the car that gets a sort of high pass filter on it. that makes everything sound like it's really there. And you can even put your own music on it, which is really cool. Now, normally we do go over the music a little bit, but in the interest of time, we're going to skip it. But just take my word for it. There is a lot of cool artists on this list, a lot of cool songs, and then some other ones too. Anyway, I hope you like listening to the voices because you're going to be doing a lot of that in this game. The story consists of kind of just going to a POI or like some big set piece. They'll be talking at you the whole time about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's, I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit monotonous.
With that antenna fix, you can now detect stabilized road junctions in the outer zone. The outer device will chart the roads as you drive and allow us to find ways to get you where you need to go. But you have to make it back with...
But eventually the story becomes sort of this just roguelike run. So the basic gist of it is you go out with your car, you have to collect these glowing orbs that will basically allow you to power the exit. And then once you get that powered up, you can go. And the goal seems to be to get deeper and deeper and deeper into the zone till you get to the end, and then that's that. They kind of tease at it in the beginning of the game. They go like, all right, anybody who gets a remnant ends up going crazy and just running back into the zone. And it's implied, well, that's what's gonna happen to you. And so, at the end of the game, surprise, it's a never-ending roguelike that you can play forever. So, I'm not gonna lie, I really like the idea of this game as a concept. I really wanted to not have those roguelike elements. I get that that's a huge part of the game's design, but I really was hoping for more of a like, hey, here's this big open world. It's you and your car against the world, and you have to explore, and there's a bunch of stuff to find. I was kind of disappointed to find that it's just like, here's a bunch of repeatable missions. You might like that, and so if that is your thing, this game's gonna be for you. Now, you can upgrade your car with different panels and abilities along the way that are all going to give you different resistances for different stuff. And of course, there is a plethora of interesting anomalies to experience. Some violent, some benevolent, and some just plain creepy. Anyway, you might be asking yourself, what were we doing earlier with all that parts about the kintsugi and the Tamagotchis? Well, in this game, your car is your possessed object. And you inherit it through chance, and you got to be nice to it, or else it won't serve you when you need it the most. And just like this car, just like those old objects that people buy at antique stores, or the objects you inherit, this is the payoff part we were talking about, you are inseparable from those objects. Does that make sense? And the final connection is, while we have all of these stories, all of these mythologies, all of these video games about an object being a vessel for souls, we kind of lose sight of a really easy connection to make, which is that we are those vessels ourselves. We ourselves are vessels for souls. And just like we take care of these physical objects that we own, like maybe you have something really valuable to you. Maybe it is a car, maybe it's a computer, maybe it's a guitar or a tool of some kind. Maybe it's an antique hammer. Doesn't matter what it is. We have to take care of these physical objects and respect their spirit. But while you're doing that, please also remember to take care of yourself. Take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your spirit. Treat yourself as an object that's indispensable to you, that you cherish and respect. Because that's what you are. You're a wonderful vessel. And, I think not enough people realize that. But anyway, that was my takeaway for the game Pacific Drive. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some healing out of it. And we'll see you on the next one. Please be there.